Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Lithuania Goes AI. I'm saying hi to you from Vilnius to wherever you are. And now we are kicking off with a series of virtual events about the Lithuanian AI ecosystem and the current innovations in AI. Today, we are kicking off with the first event out of five, Lithuania Goes AI, and the topic is health and biotech. I know you're still joining us in. So a little bit information about the events and about the whole thing. Before we begin, AI has been a hot topic for the last few years. Sometimes the term is being used in a worn out way, but in health and biotech, we can truly see it being used to solve very specific problems. Artificial intelligence innovations open new possibilities in diagnostics, make healthcare more accessible and effective, allow breakthroughs in genomics, synthetic biology, computational biology, and other sciences. And in Lithuania, at least 5,000 professionals are working in life science field, which is, I know, is a little bit broader than just health and biotech, but still, and we have around 400 companies in the field. A scientific journal, Scientific American Worldview, announced in 2018 that in the innovative potential in biotech field, Lithuania is 16th out of 54 countries. We have a growing industry of biotech and medtech, and we know that. And today in the event, which is going to take about around 2 hours, we are going to hear from three Lithuanian CEOs and company workers about their companies and their solutions in the health and biotech field. We are inviting businesses and startups from all over the world to learn about it from the insider's perspective. And hopefully there are startups from all over the world joining us today. So while I'm presenting some general information, let us know, say hi in the comments if you can. Let us know where are you from, which field, or even which company are you from, so we know who are we dealing with. Later on, we are going to have a discussion about health and biotech ecosystem here in Lithuania. And I just want to shortly give away the main questions, what I'm going to ask the three presenters today in the discussion. So the three questions are: what are we proud of? What is there to celebrate in the biotech and medtech field in Lithuania? What are the main challenges of startups and companies working in health and biotech, and what could ease their work and their existence? And what kind of potential do they see in this field in Lithuania? What kind of potential is still untapped? So the discussion is kind of a roundup of health and biotech field in Lithuania, of what are we happy about, what are we proud of, and so on. And my name is Lucas Karaitis. I'm a science and technology communicator. I host TV and radio shows about science and technology, one of which is Mokslo Sriuba. You might see me on it. And actually, I just want to shout out to just an hour ago on Žinių Radijas, a new show called Dubitai was we just had our first episode an hour ago. It's a completely new show, a weekly show where me and my colleague are going to discuss the weekly technology news around the world. So yeah, I'm interested in these topics, and today will be your hosts. And I can imagine you're still connecting. Yeah, I can see the number of people growing slowly. We are going to begin with our first presentation of today. The general rule is we have 20 minutes for presentation and 5 minutes for questions and answers, but we'll see, it's more or less. So the first presentation of today is by Dovydas Motuliauskas, a Chief Financial Officer and Business Development Manager of Ligence. Ligence creates AI in the heart imaging and health software. Their product, Heart TM, is a AI-driven, fully automated echocardiography. But for sure, Dovydas is going to present it much better than I can do it. So, Dovydas, hi. Can I see you? Can I hear you?
Hi. Thanks for intro. Can you see me? Can you hear me? I hope you do.
Yes, yes, we can.
Today, I come to present our company and the things we're doing. So Ligence is quite interesting company because it was founded by people who are purely coming from medical field. Thus, meaning when we started, we did not have any expertise in business management, business development. We had some expertise, some knowledge about AI and how these things work. But the interesting thing that I rarely see companies like that are created by medical doctors, for example. But why does it give us some leverage is that we understand the problems we're solving, and we do have tools to solve those problems. So at Linus, we have one mission, and that mission is to fight cardiovascular problems. I think many of you know already that cardiovascular problems is still the number one killer in the world. It's not, sharks, not some other causes, but basically cardiovascular problems. And every year in European Union alone, we get over 6 million new cases, and that costs our economies billions of euros. So that's also a very costly problem. What can we add to the problem is that the fifth of our population will be more than 60 years of age by 2050, meaning that there will be more need, of medical care, of attention from medical doctors, nurses, medical staff. More imaging will be required in the upcoming decades because we have more elderly people. And the last one, problem what adds to this bucket of problems is that there will be a very huge shortage of medical workers across the globe. So WHO predicts to be at around 13 million people around 2035. So it's 14 years from now. And when talking about um, diagnosing cardiovascular diseases, what may potentially come to your mind is, a doctor wearing a stethoscope and putting it on your chest, listening to your heart beats. But in practice, it doesn't give you that much information. It's not a tool used in diagnosing cardiovascular diseases. In most cases, your physician would use a heart ultrasound system and place this tiny little probe on your chest, which is connected to a stationary ultrasound cart, and make a lot of measurements of your heart's anatomical features, of its functional features, and then he or she will put it into a final structured report. Now, the problem with this exam is that it takes a lot of time to complete. So on average, it takes around 30 to 90 minutes. It really depends on a person doing it. So if you're not skilled, if you're not experienced with this examination, it might take you twice as long as it is for a experienced medical doctor. However, everyone must perform all of the measurements manually. So we saw that it takes up to 85% of total exam time. It is spent basically on just pushing those tiny ultrasound machine buttons. So you're not actually doing anything, but you're just basically measuring. That's very repetitive work, kind of hard. What can we add, to the top of our bucket of problems is that inaccuracies can be found in up to 30% of reports. So there's a very huge mismatch between doctors when performing, for example, assessing the same patient. They can have, inaccuracies, mismatches, in agreements in up to 30% of cases. So that means that the heart ultrasound, the echocardiography procedure is quite subjective one, and it really depends on your skills. And as a result, patients are forced to actually wait around 4 to 5 weeks. In Lithuania, I know it's around 4 weeks in order to get admitted to a hospital for this exam. So what we're offering, we're developing a platform, which is a DICOM image viewing platform, which also has deep learning neural networks that automatically measure all of the necessary measurements there is to analyze the heart echocardiography studies. And basically, it allows you to connect your workstation to a PACS system. It gets all of the medical data from your PACS, from your picture archive communication system. You can analyze it over there, and everything becomes much more seamless than it was before. So you can expect right now to perform the exam at least 50% faster. We offer an excellent accuracy when you're doing the post-processing analysis using our software. There's less variability when doing the measurements, and of course, it's safe to use. So I would like to show you a live demo of how it works. So imagine you're a medical doctor working somewhere in a hospital. You just completed your exam, you just scan your patients, you get different heart image views, and you can open one of your studies over here. And what the software does, it first of all recognizes what image view is shown to it. So be it a peritoneal lung axis, or maybe it's an apical 4-chamber view, or even maybe it's an apical 2-chamber view. And during a regular exam, I would need to also deduce where is exactly the end diastole and end systole. So those are the two phases that are crucial for examining the heart. So these phases actually tell you, we look at them because they're crucial for our analysis. So basically, end systole means the ventricles are fully contracted, and then diastole, for contrary, means they're fully dilated. And in these frames, in these particular frames, we make tons of measurements. So as you can see, right now, I don't have to do these measurements myself because the software has done them for me. The same applies to any other image view there is. It segments the ventricles, both atria, and so I don't have to make the measurements myself. If I'm not happy with the measurements, made by the software, I can always make them the way I like them, and so the measurements they change. But usually the software does correctly up to 94%, up to 94. It has a 94% accuracy to be more exact. And ultimately, you can have a report. So what we usually do, we just present you all of the measured values. We show the normal range, and you can then check whether those values fall out of the normal range. We usually also print a short summary for you, so you can save more time even typing the diagnosis, which is basically read it. And if you're happy with it, you just confirm it. You go to your report PDF. You can also send it to your PACS system or whatever. And basically, it can be translated into any language. So currently, we support modules in Lithuanian and English, but it can be translated into any other language in a week or so. And yeah, that's basically it. So the software has already went to clinical validation in one public hospital. And so it was proven to be as accurate, speaking about manual measurements, as any other DICOM image viewer there is on the market. And we saw that our AI system can be compared to cardiologists, to actually expert cardiologists, and we proved it to be non-inferior to cardiologists. Moving on, at this moment, we're gathering a lot of feedback from early users. So we had people to try the software in many countries across the world. So basically, Switzerland, Germany, Netherlands, Lithuania, Latvia, and many more. And so, the initial results of how it operates, they seem very encouraging, and we expect to integrate this software with more and more hospitals in the upcoming future. We also partner with several notable users. So there are two professors, which are well known in the cardiology world, who are working with us on developing the system and on validating it. And ultimately, I just want to briefly talk about AI in medicine and how it is right now. So I think everyone is fed up with this term because it's everywhere, and so many people know about it, and many people know the cliche opinions about whether we should stop training radiologists. Things like that come up in different discussions, in different posts, and in media, wherever. But in reality, is it so? Is it true? So this cliche phrase, I think it was told by one professor who was not from medical background, but doing more of data science, deep learning neural networks and stuff like that. And he thought that neural networks are getting so good at their job, we will simply don't need medical doctors anymore because we can automate those repetitive tasks without using humans. And yeah, I agree to some extent that AI has a lot of potential, and so many other experts in the field, key opinion leaders, they see a lot of potential in this technology. They also think that AI might even have potential to finally get us out from electronic health records and just doing all of the paperwork, so we can then actually spend more time with patients rather than doing the paperwork. But there was one literature review, the systematic literature review, which was published back in 2020. And it actually showed that today AI has not enough of validation, especially clinical validation, meaning that there's still a need of more prospective clinical trials to be carried out to actually prove that the software is working, any type of AI system is working seamlessly and doesn't create more problems than it offers solutions. So there's not enough data that there were many real world applications today. So there are some companies working in the field offering their products, but still there's not enough supporting evidence for that. Usually many AI studies, they have a very small number of experts that the AI system is compared against. And that causes, a threat of bias and of not being a very generalizable system, as well as many studies, they fail to actually adhere to reporting standards that are needed actually to make studies as transparent as possible. Usually data sets, when you ask for them, they're fairly accessible because, and so no one knows on what data sets they were trained, what were the training sets, what were the validation and test sets. And from what I saw today, there's basically not enough multi-center trials. So usually there's only single center trial where you train your networks or whatever one on data coming from that particular center and not validating it on any other center. So the software, nevertheless, the system, the AI technology, it has tons of potential, but we still need to put a lot of work to actually make it happen, to actually make it work in clinical practice. And so this is the mission of our company. We also want to prove that our system actually works and that is beneficial. And we hope that in the nearest future, it will allow patients to wait less and to spend less time waiting to actually get admitted to hospitals for echocardiography procedure. So that's it for me. Thank you. And I hope you'll have some questions for me.
Wait, yeah, now I'm on mute. So thank you very much, Dovydas, for a great presentation, short and sweet. I have a few questions. By the way, anyone else, if you have any more questions, at aihealth.zoomtv.lt. So if you have some questions, great. If we have any more, let us know. So to start with, at what stage is your software now? Are you selling it already as a product, or are you still testing it in a way?
So we're waiting for the regulatory approval. I mean, the software is fully functional and can be deployed at any time at any hospital. And so we're doing early trials with the software, and we're offering it to as many hospitals right now as possible, especially in Lithuania. So just basically our users will get used to it, but before we get the regulatory approval, we can't make any official sales, unfortunately.
Yeah, okay. So it does mean it's already licensed, like in the European Union or Lithuania or not?
So this is what I'm telling you. I mean, we're waiting for the regulatory approval to be issued. So we expected to have it this month, or at worst case scenario, maybe October, and that it will be fully regulatory approved.
Okay, sorry if I disappear for a moment. Looks like Zoom is having some problems. It gives me some error messages, even though the network connection is okay. So sorry for that if I am out for a second or a few. We have questions from Jonas Matuzas. Question for Ligens. Are you going diagnosis or just measuring it? If not, are you going to do it in the future? So
no, diagnosis is out of scope for us. I mean, it's a never-ending debate about whether we should allow algorithms to diagnose people. And at this point of time, no one wants to do that, and so we stray away from it. We offer, the description of what is potentially a short summary, what is potentially wrong, because it's purely mathematically based. So it means you have your measurements, and if you see that, for example, aorta is too narrow, you can just tell your end user, okay, there's a narrowing in aorta, there's a stenosis, potential stenosis, that's it. But we don't do codes, we don't do diagnosis, because it's not our job, it's a doctor's job.
Yeah, so you don't really fit in the often talked idea about that AI is taking away the job, since you help.
I think it will
you
never
actually
will
optimize
take
the
away
process.
jobs.
Yeah, and you actually help to optimize the work done by professionals, not taking it away. Okay, I'm looking if we have any more questions. Yeah, Ignas Krasutskis is asking, and thank you very much, by the way, for the questions. It's really interesting what you are interested to. Would stationary like X-ray and operator-independent echo scanners be relevant in such cases?
Um, you
What
mean
kind of
X-rays without people, without any person using them? I'm not
I
understanding the
think
question.
that's a question. Like Ignas, if you could clear us what kind of cases are you talking about, but I would guess that's the idea.
Can you please repeat the question once more?
Yeah, the question is, would stationary like X-ray and operator-independent echo scanners be relevant in such cases? So,
Oh, okay. So currently there are none echo scanners that could be, operated without a human, because that's the beauty of echo anywhere in the world. If you're doing echo, it means you need a person doing that. Actually, I saw one company trying to automate the whole process. So they just basically have some sort of a robotic arm that moves throughout patient's body and, scans, but it's really young stage, and I barely think it's possible to, to actually train it to the extent that a human does it, because that's a really tough job. So not in this moment of time. Uh, the X-ray machines, I mean, yeah, they're not, you don't need humans to actually operate them. You just place your subjects, and you have the software and everything, and it does the X-ray image for you. So if that answers your question.
yeah, I think it does. Since Ignas just clarified, and thank you very much, Ignas, for that. So that nobody would need to move sensors around the patient's chest. So that's the idea that you talked to us about.
Yeah, actually, if if you know how to do it, so yeah, go on. I think everyone will want to have a system that actually does it for you, especially in echo, because nobody wants to do echo because it's really tough.
Yeah. Okay. So, and in general, how strong is the competition in your field? I'm wondering how can you even compete with the big companies being kind of a small startup from Lithuania? How does that work for you?
Yeah, the interesting thing that in our field there are none, corporate structures operating to the extent that we do. So our competition is purely based from other startups. The only difference between us and them is the funding, the amount of funding they have and we do. And usually there's some sort of spin-outs from universities or privately owned companies, and we're all more or less, geographically separated. Um, but what do I think is that we move quite fast with limited resources, and so that's our leverage. We're doing these things quite fast, and in any case, I think there will be room for more than one company to actually offer the automation we offer today.
Great. And I was wondering, do you have a strategy, or are you thinking already about how are you going to get a word around your product? Like are you going to market it? How are you going to communicate it? Because sometimes I talk with some amazing creators of new technology, and what they say is, yeah, the technology is really great, but the challenge is to make the people in the field actually use it, since they can be sometimes old school, and they have to change what they're used to and so on. So is that going to be a big problem for you when you want
No,
to make people use your software?
yeah, so we've been doing this for like, I don't know, 1 year or so. So our main goal is actually to partner up with research centers and researchers, people who are key opinion leaders in the field of echocardiography and field of cardiology. And so we try to give our software basically to them, to trial it out, to research it, to do some research, to do publications with it. And so what actually works in healthcare, if you're, published, if someone sees evidence of your system working, then it's a good proof, and it's a good marketing strategy to actually tell everyone, working in the hospitals, that it's actually a product worth purchasing. So this is one of the strategies we're doing. The other strategy is actually, to doing cold calls, cold emails to hospitals. Usually doesn't work if you don't have, the right contacts. And the last thing you can do is actually go through medical device distributors, because they know the markets they operate in, they know the people, and in healthcare, in my opinion, it's everything about connections as well.
Great. And we have more business talk. Ignas is asking, what is the monetization strategy there? Charge per measure, license cost, or subscription? Do you know what I'm going to
Uh,
choose? The software?
yeah, with hospitals, you don't want to do, charge per measurement or charge per one study, because they usually are big corpos that don't want to pay, every day or every month. They want to just purchase the software and use it for like 5 years, and then maybe think about buying a new license. So my answer is, licensing of the software, giving them also a support 24/7, and yeah, basically that's it. Licensing it is.
Okay, and I'm one hand in the chat since it's quite active. And thank you very much, everyone, for asking the questions and saying hi. Neringa, Grida is saying hi, and Dimitri is asking a question. Do you feel your intellectual property is protected?
Yes, we do, because we have a patent for it.
Okay, so you have it in for European Union, for USA, or
It's a PCT. It's a World
Gotcha.
Intellectual Property Organization that handles it.
So you did it before you started communicating about your software?
We did it before any publications. So yeah.
Okay, that sounds quite safe. So if we have any more questions, anyone in the chat, if you have any, let's ask Douglas. If no, we can still chat with him in the discussion part of this event. It looks like it's all good. So thank you very much, Douglas. By the way, one last question. So you said the average waiting time in Europe for cardio echologist is around 4 or 5 weeks, and with your software, if it would be used quite wide, for example, in Lithuania, how would you say would it change the system? How long is the waiting time then?
Well, it's a really hard to answer question, but I just hope it will fall down to at least 1 or 2 weeks.
Okay. Okay, just wanted to be clear. So thank you very much, Dovydas. Dovydas Matuliauskas from Legends, Lithuanian startup. We are going to meet him in the discussion a little bit later. And now we are going to have our second presentation in just a moment. Jokūbas Drazdas is joining us. He's the CEO of Aquix Cyber Services, which is a cybersecurity company generally, but we'll hear a health-related study case, as I know, as I can imagine. And Jokūbas is going to talk about AI mechanical lung ventilation. So, hi, Jokūbas.
Hello, everyone. Do you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can see you well. So, really looking forward to hear from you. What I'm going to tell. I was reading some interviews with you, and I can imagine what is the topic about. So we are listening, and anyone, if you have any more questions, write those down in the chat.
Okay, do you see my presentation?
Yes, yeah, we can see it. So off you go, Jokūbas.
Okay, thank you. So hello, everyone. As you know, I am Jokūbas Drazdas, CEO of Aquix Cyber Services. And our team specializes in AI-based solutions, also cybersecurity services. We started from this topic. Today, I will shortly introduce you one of our products. So this is artificial intelligence platform for early detection of lung injury through artificial lung ventilation. The name of our product is Aquix Debrief. It's like monitoring and decision support system for mechanical ventilation. As you all know, AI is transforming the practice of medicine. It's been helping doctors diagnose patients more accurately, make predictions about patients' future health, and recommend better treatments. The synergy between data science and medical knowledge changes the traditional approach towards patients who need mechanical ventilation. IT specialists using the latest data processing technologies provide medical personnel with new possibilities for decision-making and patients monitoring. Artificial lung ventilation is the essential, more effective method of treating respiratory failure. Acute respiratory dysfunction is the most common condition for patients with complex conditions, and acute respiratory failure is the most common cause and indication for the treatment of patients in intensive care units. Talking about our product, so the main goal is to develop an innovative artificial intelligence product with unique properties for artificial lung ventilation treatment for respiratory failure, to predict risk factors for lung injury, to detect ongoing lung injury, and to offer technical and medical solutions that improve artificial lung ventilation methodologies to reduce the risk of lung injury. At the moment, there are no similar products on the market that address the risk of ventilation-induced lung injury. Before our product was developed, all the research parameters used to calculate the mechanical power have been manually calculating using the simplest Microsoft Excel software. So it was like very primitive research. And still, it was just calculations with old data, and the amount of data which was analyzed by the researchers was quite small. They could not work with real-time big data and to do efficient analysis with specific conclusions. Even small amount of data takes a long processing time and complicates the work of the intensive care unit and medical researchers. Humans don't have such abilities to analyze such amount of data. That's why AI is very important in this part. For example, in 1 hour, patient can do from 1,500 to even more than 2,000 breaths. Every breath consists of 40 parameters. So in 24 hours, we have sometimes even more than 2 million parameters. And all this data has to be analyzed. And it is obvious that for human to do this mission is impossible. So it can be done only by the machines. And we already tested our software, exactly. At the moment, our software is analyzing approximately more than 10 million breaths in 1 month. In average, we're analyzing data from 25 patients with different diagnoses in a month. So now we have collected even more than 1 terabyte data. The main difficulties in recognizing the synchronisms were a wide variety of correct breaths, depending on the patient's condition, the mode of operation of the mechanical ventilation devices, and other parameters. Even for an experienced technician, this task is not easy. At the beginning of the work, we used supervised machine learning methods, including neural network, but the need to mark up a huge array of data as well as labeling errors. This is a frequent obstacle in the implementation of machine learning methods in medicine. Did not give us a good result. So we decided to use unsupervised machine learning. The best result was obtained with density-based spatial clustering. Currently, the occurrence of detecting asynchronisms is about 85%, but in our plans, we have to increase it up to 95%. And now you can see the architecture of our solution. So maybe I will tell you more details about how our system works and how everything was started. So our company, with the help of critical care specialists from the Republican Vilnius University Hospital, has developed a system where all the data from sensors of the ventilator are collected and analyzed using various algorithms in order to adapt ventilation in individual needs as much as possible and ensure maximum safety and quality of mechanical lung ventilation. The new generation ventilators provide and display an enormous amount of real-time data for each breathing cycle. For a long time, all this information was used to a limited extent because the data collection, storage, and analysis was complex and resource-intensive process. Devices for centralized management are quite expensive and have their own shortcomings in the data processing. Our team has found a way to process information and create an innovative system where medical personnel are able to monitor the settings and parameters of each ventilated patient. This system uses machine learning algorithms to automatically detect errors, patient ventilator asynchronous, and other discrepancies between the patient and the device, and warns the hospital staff. Moreover, the system employs various predictive analytic methods to offer the most suitable lung ventilation technique for each patient. At the very beginning, the medical team decided which type and method of lung ventilation is the best for each patient. The initial parameters, volume, pressure, flow, frequency, oxygen fraction, and etc. was set by the physician. After setting up the device, a lot of data is generated by the ventilator itself. The problem is with data storage and processing because an enormous amount of data is provided during each inspiration and exhalation, which is hard to process for medical staff. We came up with an idea to collect the data directly from the devices and send it to the server via safe wireless connection. There, the data is filtered and analyzed using various data science methods, including machine learning algorithms. Either real-time or summarized data could be accessed from the connected personal device, tablet, mobile phone, or laptop. It's important to know that the data is completely depersonalized. The application does not store any personal information, yet the attending physician is able to fill in data on the dynamics of the patient's health. Here you can see this visualizations how looks our program for the final user. Using this platform, the medical personnel can remotely monitor the parameters of ventilation of each patient in real time, or take a look at the summary report for a certain period of time. The generated report shows how long the patient has been in the therapeutic range of ventilation, how often and what type of asynchronous have occurred. Moreover, the system itself is able to detect discrepancies and trends in certain parameters, which could be related to changing patients' conditions. These features not only facilitate the work of medical specialists, but also ensures maximum safety for patients. The biggest challenge during the ventilation process is ventilation-induced lung injury, so-called VILI. So the risk of the development of VILI should be minimized. When the airflow pressure is too high, the air is blown too quickly, or the discrepancies between patient respiratory forces and ventilators, so-called patient-ventilator asynchrony, the risk for VILI increases. The main goal of our product was to create a data analysis system which could detect early changes in ventilation parameters related to lung injury, find out the causes, and suggest solutions to prevent VILI. The created system uses machine learning algorithms to recognize all irregular or incorrect respiratory cycles. For example, the patient tries to inhale and the machine does not respond. In addition, these are not only recognized, but the probably causes that provided when, for example, leak or excessive activity of the patient. During volume and pressure control ventilation, it is also possible to calculate mechanical power related to the risk of VILI. And then, our system, which is based on artificial intelligence, which is capable to process and analyze hundreds and thousands of different parameters of ventilated patients and provide the medical staff with the warnings and recommendations, is indispensable in intensive care units. Our system can warn staff about the changes in the ventilation process and make suggestions on ventilation methodology trying to adapt settings for individual needs. The early detection of deteriorating respiratory function enables us to make changes of ventilation settings for the best quality and the optimal treatment results. We believe that the current system could also be used to reduce human errors when irregular or incorrect respiratory cycles remain unnoticed. This would also be very useful for the less experienced medical workers or junior staff, because ventilation parameters can be monitored remotely by the expert, and useful recommendations are provided by the system itself. The software does not take on the decision-making function, but it provides the data which helps to make the best decision. Mechanical lung ventilation is often seen as a method, but we should keep in mind that lung ventilation is a process that requires not only medical knowledge, but also continuous monitoring and analysis of the ventilation parameters. We must assess the quality of the ventilation process in order to reduce hospital financial burden and save human resources. We are glad that the cooperation with Dr. Saulis Vasilius, a professor of medicine at Vilnius University and the head of the Center of Anesthesiology and Critical Care Medicine in the Republican Vilnius University Hospital, helped us to achieve our goals. Professor Saulis Vasilius has over 30 years of experience in intensive care with his special interest in mechanical ventilation. So this collaboration helped us to create a unique and innovative system to facilitate the work of medical staff as well as maximize patients' safety. You see, actually, although we started working on this project before the pandemic, it also can be very useful in the treatment of COVID-19 patients. Because of this platform, less contact is needed with patients and also less stuff. So it's very actual in this hard time of pandemic. So our program we can monitor the patients 24 hours, 7 days a week. Also, our system provides timely notifications, provides automatic detection of asynchronisms using machine learning algorithms, also archiving of data, and so on. So I think that this program, this solution will help us for patients to recover faster when the mechanical ventilation treatment is used. And also it will be helpful for administration of hospitals to check the quality of mechanical ventilation treatment. And now we use this system not only just for treating patients, but also for researchers to do research regarding those data which we get from the mechanical ventilation devices. So thanks for your attention. If you have some questions, I will be glad to answer.
Yes, we do have some questions, but first of all, thank you very much, Jokubas, for an amazing presentation. I was just actually sitting and listening and thinking how great it is to know that so many great things in medicine are happening here in Lithuania. So it was really, really interesting to hear from you. I can see already some questions in the chat. If you have any more, please write it down. For sure, I'm going to ask those. So just to be clear in the beginning, so your software, your product is now being used at the moment in Lithuanian hospitals.
So we're now using it in Republican Vilnius University Hospital. Also, we are talking with some hospitals here in Lithuania as well, and other cities. And actually, we are talking with some companies which is like producing the mechanical ventilation devices. So yeah, at this moment we are doing this.
Yeah, just an interesting fact, and since you mentioned mechanical ventilation devices, there is this website, helmetbasedventilation.com, and the Lithuanian scientist Aurika Savitskaitė is a part of this project who works on helmet-based ventilation devices. And at the moment,
yeah, we had with them. They have also very interesting solutions. So maybe we'll find some possible maybe cooperation fields with them.
Yeah, so there are even more Lithuanians who are working on this COVID ventilation thing. And by the way, we are working on a TV piece that we already filmed about Eureka and her helmet ventilation. It's going to be on TV in a few weeks. Just an announcement. And it looks like your solution is just in the right moment, in the right time when COVID happened. But you have been developing it before, right? So how long did it take for you to develop this project, and how long did the testing take?
Actually, we started more than a year ago, before the pandemic, maybe 3 months before the pandemic started. And after that, we was like developing our platform, and now we are in the testing testing phase. Doing the testing in the hospital, and also we will think about how to develop in more efficient way. As I mentioned before, our goal is to do the accuracy up to 95%. So now we are at this stage.
Okay, and we have this technical question. Jonas is asking, do you save time series directly to disk, or do you compress it?
Directly.
Yeah, I think it's a question. It's a question about your software. So, do you save time? And again, I guess that's Jonas is talking about the time of ventilation, time of breaths directly into disk, or do you compress it? Do you compress the data? I guess that's the question that you feed the neural networks. Jonas, could you clarify if that's the question? So okay, let's wait for Jonas to clarify the question, so we understand it in a right way.
Well, maybe I understood that. Actually, the last month it's like written directly, and previous months all the data is compressed.
Okay. So Jonas, let us know if that's answering your question. I'm not a software developer myself, so maybe I can. Jonas is saying that I was told that's a lot of data, long signals that you have. So basically, I guess that answers the question. Right, Jonas, so let us know, Jonas, if we answered the question. And also, you, Jokubas, in the beginning, you mentioned a few issues that you were addressing. And one of those that it is difficult to monitor online what is happening in different floors of different buildings. Is this also an issue that you're going to take on? Are you going to work with this? Do you have any plans? Because I heard there are some ideas, and there are some companies already working here in Lithuania to count the taken and the empty beds in Lithuanian hospitals. Is it your company that's working with this solution, or you just mentioned this as an issue in the beginning of your presentation?
No, that's not working on this. No, we have actually, we are glad that we have solution which we made, that we are collecting from each device, from each mechanical ventilation device, the data directly via wireless connection. So that is very, how to say, it's very easy to collect the data now. And when we have the data, it's easy to create a solution. Because for artificial intelligence solutions, the data is needed. So
yeah. And how hard it is to implement your solution into a hospital? That's in a COVID part of the hospital. Does it take a lot of resources? Is it hard? Because it sounds like what you have your product at this moment in time, where we have COVID situation all around the world, could be used like in a number of hospitals all around the world, and a lot of them should be interested, but maybe it takes a long time to implement the solution, or no? How long
No,
does it take?
implementation is not the biggest problem. We can implement in very short terms, but sometimes it's the problem administration of the hospitals. Sometimes they don't want to have some innovations in the hospital. Sometimes they are from like old school doctors who don't want to use some, how to say, platforms which is based on artificial intelligence. They don't understand what it is, and sometimes it is difficult to solve this problem.
Something that I was talking about with Dovydas in the presentation before, and I heard this, I guess, too often from innovative people. Okay, Jonas, thank you. Yeah, Jonas says he heard the answer. So if we don't have any more questions, do we? I think we are good to go. So business side of this project, of this solution, have people working on this on like your inside team of how to sell it? Are you planning a strategy or how to communicate, how to sell it worldwide at the moment, or is it later in your plans, Jokubas?
Actually, we are thinking about this. We have our own team. Sometimes we are asking for colleagues to advise us on some issues. Actually, I know some team members for Legends as well. They are communicating. Sometimes they advise us this hard way. And at the moment, we need to do a certification process. So the process of medical solutions. So we need to be certified. Now, our plans is FDA, United States, but it's very difficult to get it. So I don't know. Maybe everything will be okay and we will achieve our goals.
Yeah, hopefully. Do you plan to license it in European Union also?
Yeah, we'll start.
Yeah, I can remember we had this event with Meta a few months ago about licensing of medical devices in the European Union. I have this idea. It's really, really difficult with 2A, 1A, and so on. So best of luck with that.
Expensive.
Yeah, also expensive. And one last question from Jonas. Great question. Do you have plans to monitor heart beating, not only lung ventilation?
Excuse me, could you repeat?
Yeah. Do you have plans to monitor heart beating? So pulse of heart beating. Yeah.
Thank you for the question. Actually, we have plans to do this and actually to get more data for our platform. But still, we want to finish at this stage, to develop our platform to the best, to do all the best what we can, and later we will think about other additional data which could be very useful for this platform. Yeah. So we have this in plan, but in the future.
Yeah, so step by step.
Yes,
the answer is yeah. Okay, but a great insight, Jonas. Thank you very much for the question, and thank you, Jokubas, the CEO of Acro Cyber Services. He just talked with us about AI mechanical lung ventilation. So see you, Jokubas, soon in the discussion, and thank you very much. And we are going to have our last presentation of today. Laurynas Karpus, a co-founder and CEO of Biomatter Designs, is joining us. He is going to talk about AI accelerated design of new proteins, and Biomatter Designs are one of the pioneers of technologies for generative protein design at the intersection of scientific biology and AI. I actually had an opportunity to visit Biomatter Design last week with an excursion with Mita. Someone of you maybe heard of it. There are excursions that are being organized by Mita, also the organizers of this event, and we've actually visited the Biomatter Design themselves. So hi, Laurynas.
Hi there.
Hi. I can hear you. So off you go with your presentation. We are listening carefully.
All right, thanks a lot. So hi everyone, I'm Laurinus. I'm CEO and co-founder of Biomatter Designs. In these short 20 minutes, I will try to introduce you to the world of proteins, talk about some of the problems concerning new protein engineering, and the solutions Biomatter Designs is developing to tackle them. So what are proteins? They're biological origin molecules that we have taken from nature, improved by protein engineering, and applied to various different areas of our life. These areas can range from medicine, for diagnostics and therapeutics, academical research, to even everyday use cases such as washing powder for clothes. To be more specific, depending on properties like shape, proteins are antibodies and peptides engineered to treat diseases, enzymes that provide green routes to chemical manufacturing, and polymerases that enable PCR diagnostics, just as those used in COVID testing. And while opportunities are seemingly endless, designing new proteins is often limited not by our imagination, but rather technical obstacles. First, constantly evolving, our knowledge of how various natural proteins function is still limited. It is extremely difficult to relate protein properties of a molecule to its structure, and even further, decide what changes should be made to a molecule in order to improve it. Secondly, even the smallest proteins have trillions of possible ways we can change them. For many proteins, there are more ways to change them than there are atoms in the known universe, and only a fraction of these changes result in improvements. The majority of them make the protein inactive or unfit for application. So the ultimate goal is to find the winners, protein mutations that produce the intended function or have wanted properties. And third, you'll probably suggest that if we make enough guesses on how to change protein, we could potentially brute force our way into the correct answer. And of course, it was previously shown multiple times that this is indeed possible with significant investments. If we invest enough time and other resources in the laboratory, we may arrive at an answer. But in this case, each unique protein project may take multiple years to complete, have high financial burden, and still retain the chance to not function properly in the end. So at Biomatter Designs, we are aiming to solve all three of these main problems by transforming most of the engineering work done in laboratory into the digital world. To achieve that, we have developed an AI-driven platform that can efficiently learn from two main sources. First, it's the natural protein data. During the last 40 or more years, scientists have collected billions of unique protein sequences and thousands of structures. This data helps our platform to learn the intrinsic non-written rules about how protein structure should look to function correctly. Second type of data used in the platform is experimental. Values received from various laboratory experiments help to fine-tune the models to predict what changes should we make to the protein molecule in order to improve it further. With both types of data, our platform can then be applied to the digital design of new proteins. The models can generate novel molecules currently not known in nature with intended function and other parameters such as how strong it will bind to the target, how active is the enzyme, and what is the stability of the protein molecule. Afterwards, instead of testing millions of different proteins, we can choose the best 10 variants to experiment, validate, send it to our laboratory, and validate whether they're working or not. In turn, our technology enables us to reduce the time required to design a new protein from years to months or even weeks. I'll demonstrate this with a few examples. An important problem we have addressed in 2019 was the protein diversification problem. The main question is as follows: how can we design proteins in a way that changes would not impair its function? So we would improve some of its properties, but it would still function as the natural protein. For that, we have developed a generative machine learning model we term ProteinGen. The model first learns from a data set of natural protein data, which are denoted as Y dots in the protein space. During the training, it learns the intrinsic rules governing these proteins, and afterwards can generate a large diversity of synthetic proteins which possess large differences when compared to the natural ones. These are denoted as green dots in the protein's sequence-based visualization. Just to remind you, randomly picking this many changes almost certainly results in inactive proteins in the classical way of engineering. But with Protein GAN, we have experimentally demonstrated that AI-introduced changes result in fully functional proteins. These generated proteins often possess different properties to natural ones, which is useful when designing candidates for specific purposes. For example, some of them may be extra stable, and some of them may have very low immunogenicity. You can learn more about this model by reading our Nature article, and you can find the link to the article in our website. Now that we can introduce large changes to the protein molecule, it's important that we pick correct changes to our design proteins that would lead us to improved properties of interest. In this example, we wanted to increase the activity and stability of an enzyme. Using our computational design platform, we have designed and experimentally tested 7 variants. And using our computational design platform, we can see that after the experimental testing, 6 of them were fully functional and possessed up to 7 times larger activity than the starting point or the natural enzyme variant. Also, one of the variants had immensely increased stability, which allowed the enzyme to be used in much higher temperatures when compared to the starting point. In this case, increased activity means that the protein will be a lot better and faster at doing its job. And the increased stability means that it will be able to do it for a longer time or in increased temperatures, which is often relevant to industrial setting. At Biomatter Designs, we developed tools to enable protein design and strive that the protein design process would not be limited by technical hurdles and only limited by engineers' imagination. We strive to build a future with readily available and effective protein therapeutics, accurate diagnostics, and green chemical manufacturing workflows enabled by enzymes. A big thanks to Mita for organizing the event, and please don't hesitate to ask questions or reach out to me if you want to discuss anything longer at lorinas@biomatterdesigns.com. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you very much, Louise, for your presentation. So I have a few questions, and hopefully everyone else also has. So if you have any, write in the chat. Okay, so an interesting problem you're working on, but so what's your product that you have already? What's your solution? What are you selling? Do you already have a working product or not?
Right. So the examples I have gave you are the examples from the models that are, fully validated, fully tested, and already we use them both for our in-house protein engineering projects to develop new proteins for specific applications, and also using them to provide service to companies that require protein engineering. And that basically save them time, and we can arrive at the answer much quicker than go through all of the classical laboratory testing. So these are indeed examples from the already working platform.
So yeah, you are at the moment working on the platform, which is going to be, I don't know, sold in the future still, right? I can understand correctly. I remember that's what we heard when we were visiting Biomatter Designs and talking with your colleague. At the moment,
Right.
we're still working on the solution.
Yeah, so it's let's say it's a mixed bag. So there's probably never a stage where when talking about protein engineering, there's never a stage where it's ideal. So I think the development will be ongoing probably for the next 20 years in the field of protein engineering and for Biomatter Designs. But the platform we have right now is fully functional to cover most of the classical protein properties, and is already being commercialized today.
Okay, and some context, since it's a really hard topic, protein design and chemistry in general, and biology. So how long is that even a thing, protein design? How long has this been happening in science?
Right. So protein engineering in general is by no means a new concept in the world. So protein engineering has been there since I think 1970s, 1980s, probably even earlier. I think since it's such a difficult question, how can we change the natural molecule to make it do different things? How can we change it to have different properties? It's a question that we can solve with different tools at different speeds, and basically improved technology allows us to arrive at the answer not in, let's say, 5 to 10 years, but in a few months. And also it often enables new things we can engineer, because 20 years ago we could take a natural protein and shift the activity a little bit. Today, we may take an example of a natural protein and re-engineer it completely to do completely different things. So, for example, if it transforms one chemical molecule to another, we can change it so it does the same function but to completely different molecules. So it's the scale is different each year we do research globally.
Yeah, and I know that. For example, 20 years ago, to do what is being done now was super hard, and there was a big breakthrough on in the end of last year, if I can remember right, with the creation of new proteins. Could you enlighten us of what happened last year? It was a big breakthrough in protein design, and I think it's a very hard still thing to understand. So even for those who know it, it's nice to once again talk about it.
Right. So I think you're talking about AlphaFold 2, right? The
Yes.
DeepMind Google algorithm that blew everyone away. Very from very high level can divide the problem into two parts. So one is how can we make a specific structure? So what protein sequence do we need? So it makes the exact ideal structure that we want. And the second question is, what kind of structure or what kind of form do we need for it to perform the intended function? Mm-hmm. So DeepMind is solving the first question, the first big question that researchers have been putting their minds to is, how do we arrive from amino acid sequence to an ideal structure? So they have, it works considerably well, I think, from at least many classical targets, it benchmarked very well. So it's a large breakthrough. So we're definitely, I think even here at Biomatter Designs, where we focus more on the what structure do we need for the specific function, it helps us tremendously to be able to faster arrive at the correct structure, because we can take a notebook, paint ourselves a structure and say this would be ideal for the specific function. We agree on that, our AI agrees on that, but how do we arrive at that structure? So basically, since the field is very large, there are big milestone, big problems, and that was a very big problem they solved.
Yeah, so just I'll try to explain in my own words so I could truly understand that. And I was writing something down since it's a very interesting scientific problem. So before this event, the proteins were more or less created experimentally, right? And now you can more or less think about it in theoretical terms. Like before doing it actually in the laboratory, you can kind of project on what's going to happen next.
Right. So I'd say computationally, we have been building structures before DeepMind, but DeepMind just increased the ceiling of what is possible with solving them computationally. So basically, when we do or solve structures experimentally, it may take years for each structure, and we have thousands of proteins to thousands, if not hundreds of thousands proteins to go through. So it basically helps us to first we can now solve, as DeepMind did, solve all the natural sequences that are currently in databases. We can now see what sequences produce what structures, and now we can more firmly move on to the function problem. How do we make the function out?
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm being very nosy and geeky about it. So thanks for explaining it. It's an interesting problem. And also Jonas has a question. Can you give more examples where artificial proteins are being used? Is it food? Is it medicine? Is it our body?
Right. So if by artificial proteins, we are talking about engineered proteins of any kind. So let's say we take a natural protein, we change one amino acid, and it's an engineered protein. So it's basically all around us. So as I mentioned, for example, let's take the hottest example, so COVID PCR testing. So the polymerase is used in the kits are by no means taken from nature enzymes that are just put inside the test. It's basically an enzyme that was fine-tuned, that was engineered to be able to withstand high temperatures, to be able to be accurate, to be able to be fast, and to produce very robust test results. So that's just one example of enzyme such as polymerase, which has probably thousands of variants. Different companies are engineering them, producing them, and aiming to build the perfect error-free polymerase that can produce great results. There's also more of a simple example, such as when you take your washing powder to clean your clothes, they also have enzymes, lyophilized enzymes, which are basically engineered to be thermostable, because when you wash your clothes, the temperature must increase, and if the enzymes inactivate or die at the higher temperatures, your clothes will not be washed. So it's basically also engineered proteins that are used in general. So I think engineered enzymes cover many of the industries.
Yeah, great examples. And of course, medicine and pharmacy are also fields where it's being used very, very often and all the time. I mean, and what about food? How is it being used in food? Do you have any examples?
Right. So I'm definitely positive that it's also used in food in one way or another. It's probably more popular right now to not heavily engineer the proteins for food cases, but perhaps make the natural ones more dealable with in the food production process. It's when it comes to food, it's always more limiting what you can do with genetic engineering. So the result of that is that we don't have plenty of examples of that, but there's currently companies that are building synthetic products like meat and modified plant-based meat that could be the answer.
Yeah, thanks. And always interesting to hear about examples. They make everything more simple. And you are being one of the co-founders and CEO of Biometry Design. So what do you actually do in your job? Do you actually work on the science itself, or do you just take care of the team? By the way, how big is the team? How big is your company at the moment?
Currently, we're 15. So 15 people, both from R&D and business side of things. So predominantly, our team is in more of a R&D one. We're expanding our, let's say, product business team members bit by bit. I myself, let's say, it's now very natural to wear many hats. So maybe at morning you are spending some time talking about R&D. In the midday, you talk about how do we increase our business case, and in the evening, you looking for a new office. So it's very generalistic, but it's a bit of everything, because right from beginning, when we just started the company 3 years ago, we all sat down and thought, how the models should look, how the data should look, who needs it. So I think not only for me, but for everyone in the company, it's a very multi-career path that they're going here at Biometric Designs.
Great. Okay, thank you very much, Laurinas. We are definitely going to talk about challenges that you face in just a moment in our presentation. I can, by the way, see Jokubas, you were asking a question, just the same question as I had about DeepMind and AlphaFold in our internal chat. So we answered this shortly, but that's definitely a topic we could talk for a long time. Now, I'd like to thank Laurinas once again for a really great presentation and to represent the biotech field in this event. And now we are going to have a short pause for 1 or 2 minutes because we have to rewire something for our upcoming discussion about the ecosystem of biotech and health and AI. So we'll be back in just a few moments, in just a few minutes. So everyone watching the presentation, watching the event, just don't go far away. Maybe have a coffee or a tea, and we'll be back in 2 minutes with a half an hour discussion about the field. So see you in just a few moments. Don't go away. Okay, so we are back as promised in just a few moments. Now we are going to have a discussion for around half an hour, maybe 40 minutes. We have three great scientific workers, let's say, here in the discussion. Dovydas Matuliauskas from Ligence, Jokubas Drazda, CEO of Aqua Cyber Services, who represent more or less medicine side, and also Laurinas Karpus, Biometric Designs. We just heard from him, who represents more or less biotech. And today I just want to make a short roundup of the ecosystem that these guys are working here in Lithuania. So the first question for all of you, and I'm not talking to any of you directly, so who wants can answer, but what can we be proud of in Lithuania? What can we be proud of in health and biotech? I don't know. What do you think? Is it the number of companies per number of people, or is it something else? Is there anything that you are like to appreciate in your field? Could you share with us?
Well, me personally, I love it that there's a lot of young people working in this field, and I see young faces all around me. So that's a really nice thing. I'm also really proud of Kazime, the company led by Professor Virginijus Šikšnys, and I think everyone knows that he was the first in the world actually to work with CRISPR-Cas9, even though some journals tend to give this award to some other researchers, but we all know that's not true. So yeah, those are the things I'm really proud of, and I see this sector is really growing, so that's cool. That's really nice, and I believe it will be growing in the future because we have a lot of brain power in Lithuania. That's not a secret. We have a lot of talented people, and they create nice things. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and while we're talking about medicine, there are definitely higher wages if you go to, let's, for example, Western Europe, and in medicine and even startups. I think they could find maybe some better places to work on. What do you think keeps young people from going abroad to work in medicine? Since there is always this discussion about should even I know some people who are in medicine who are always discussing it. Well, higher wages in the Western Europe, but is it, I don't know, longing for home, or what do you think keep so many people here?
Yeah, personally, I don't understand it. I think simply patriotism. I don't know, maybe it's always easier, to run away from your problems than actually solve them. So I really admire those people who stay here and do business here and stay here to work as medical doctors, nurses or whatever, because I don't know, it just feels right thing to do.
Okay. What about Jokubas, Laurynas? What do you think? What could we be proud of in the health, biotech, and AI field in Lithuania?
Right. So I truly believe we in Lithuania have very strong foundational background. I don't think the amount of companies per students who finishes biotech or life sciences studies is that large. But I think you always need to start from beginning, and to develop truly groundbreaking companies, deep tech companies that are making solutions that are based on brand new fundamental research. You basically need very strong fundamental research, which we really have, and the students are prepared quite well from both theoretical perspective and the experimental perspective, along with the bigger picture of where the science is going. So and we definitely have good examples, such as in biotech fields, such as droplet genomics. I think tremendous potential, and with the single cell analysis systems. So I think bit by bit, since we have a strong foundation, we will build the startup ecosystem. I think it would be worse if we would put a lot of investments in the startup system 20 years ago. But in this case, we first built the foundation, and now we can make new incubators, push young people to start companies, and just be brave enough to try out their ideas. So I think everything's in the right track.
Great. You mentioned droplet genomics, really interesting Lithuanian startup. I think already they have around 30 employees in their company, so growing really fast, and it takes time, I guess. In this field.
Great team.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Jokubas, do you have anything to add? What are you?
Yeah, actually, I agree with my colleagues. I am glad that there are a lot of young, brave people who not afraid of doing, like, take risk to do some nice, good things, and even when if it is not will be successful, it also good, because we have how to say, of our experience, we can show for others what need to do and what we don't need to do in the future. So we are like first pioneers, which is going this way, And for next generations, we will show for younger people that don't be afraid to do something innovative. Don't listen to the people who is saying that don't do this, or it is very risky. And I see a lot of people who done already a lot of nice things in this sector. So I'm very glad, and I wish that in Lithuania will be more companies which will work in this sector.
Yeah, great, thanks. And some might say it's a very not Lithuanian thing to do, just to be grateful for something, not to be always grumpy about everything. But I think it's nice and it's healthy to be thankful and appreciate something for a moment. Okay, and the second question I have for you is the challenges that you faced. First of all, what are the challenges that are, let's say, not specific to Lithuania, but specific to your fields? You're CEOs of biotech, and okay, Dovydas is a chief financial officer, but I'm counting him in. You're working on these health and biotech startups companies. What are the challenges that you face like every day? What are the biggest ones? I'm wondering. Maybe it is finding new employees. Maybe it is I don't know, going abroad and exporting your solution. So could you share with us what are the challenges that drive you sometimes maybe crazy? I don't know. Lourdes, you were the first one before. Could you share with us?
First, for us, I think it was the hesitancy and the skepticism from medical doctors willing to actually adopt such systems. So it will always be the same, because medicine is quite a conservative field, and it's kind of hard to get solutions into it. Let me think of something next. The other thing actually that was quite challenging is, your model can work in your lab as accurately as you want it, because I mentioned that when systematic review in my presentation, there's a lot of research going on, but there's not enough of evidence about AI actually performing well in the clinical setting. And those researchers, they just present state-of-the-art results, very good results, and they claim it as to be as a life-changing, industry-changing solutions, but it's not the case. The reality is a bit different. In the reality, you can have, as I said, as the best possible algorithm working over there, but when it comes to integrating with a hospital, that's a different story. I mean, you don't have to be just an AI company, you have to become a software company actually that enables the integration into the hospital. You have to understand how PACS system works, how their internal system work. And that's actually, I think, one of the greatest issues any medical device startup faces. Now we found a way out of it. We know how to integrate with hospitals, what are the best ways, but still, even though the further we go, we find new and new challenges. And so finding that one scalable approach is actually a mission, a goal. And I've seen some initiatives. There's companies in the United States that have some sort of AI marketplace that you can deploy any AI model in the hospital right away. But it seems nice on the paper, but when you come with your product, which is a bit more complex and it offers more interaction for the end user, then these things, these software engineering things, they become really complicated, and nothing works as you would wish it works. So there's a lot of things to think about, and you don't think about them in the beginning. You just face them on the way.
Yeah. So, and Jokūbas, Laurynas, can you agree with Dovydas that something that works perfectly in the lab can sometimes not perform so well in the wild? Or do you have other challenges in your work?
Since I can't even imagine the hurdles that come with medical deploying of anything. But we definitely have some similar issues that again, going back to the computational designing proteins, sometimes things look amazing in silico, or in computer it looks like it should work perfectly, and then you go to the lab, you order the DNA, you test the proteins, and some things just don't work, and then you go back to the drawing board and start over, because there are simple small things that all need to align for the system to work, and if it doesn't work, we don't know why usually. So it's part of gut feeling. But for us, I think one of the more bigger hurdles is the interdisciplinarity requirement of the team, because everyone does not need to be AI expert, and everyone does not need to be protein expert, but you to work efficiently, you need to have a very good feeling in both protein science, so that's like biochemistry, biophysics, molecular biology. You also need to code well, code professionally. You also need to, at least if you're not the main machine learning person, you at least need to know at least the sense. So finding all of people that tick all of those boxes is difficult. So we went with the way that we hire those that tick those boxes, but we also hire people that tick part of the boxes, and then just grow together and learn together. And because after what 2-3 years, it seems to be the most effective way. And the second thing would be probably specifically in Lithuania, I think we're struggling a bit with laboratory space. Well, at least we're struggling with lab space, which requires it requires significant lab space to put all of the equipment. You visited, you saw, it's not a large space.
It's tiny.
Yeah. So we are looking for ways to expand our laboratory space, and there are the things in plans, but in the future I think it would accelerate a lot of young people's research if there would be a general incubator where you go, you test some things, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, you pack your stuff and go home.
Yeah, but it also sounds that GMC, Gyvybės Mokslų Centras, the Center for Life Sciences, has a lot of laboratories. That's at least what they tell. So is that still not enough? You need more?
Yeah. So right now we're using some of that infrastructure, but it's always research groups are all also growing. So the building is not growing, and the research groups and the people that come to Lithuania from various institutes, the numbers are growing. So at some point, we'll probably need a new building, or just an incubator for entrepreneurs.
Okay. Even though the Center for Life Sciences is only 5 years old, but it's nice in a way that you cannot fit in a building. In a way that's it's nice to hear. And Jokubas, what would be your challenges?
Actually, I think that the same challenges is for us, because sometimes everything looks very perfect in the computer and your plans, but when you are starting doing something, you have a lot of challenges to solve, and even some easy things to do sometimes don't go as easy as you thought before. And actually, when we were preparing our plans for this product, some guys from university said, "Oh, this will be very easy to solve. It will be. Oh, it's not a problem." And when we faced it in reality, we spent a lot of time to find the best solution for this. And that's why I mentioned before, even if you are not succeed in the end of the day, still you have went a long way. You had a lot of experience, which we can share with this experience with other colleagues who want to go this way. Yeah? So, and also sometimes it's very hard, as I mentioned in previous, that sometimes it's very hard to find open-minded professionals who wants to collaborate, because we're working in medicine sector. So they are not easy to find good experts who wants to collaborate to creating some innovation and so on, so on. Some of them, they just want to get money and like, that's it, you know. They want to get salary, but nothing they can do, how to say, just for formality, you know. But you need, if you work in this sector, you need to have the passion. You need to work not for the salary, but you need to do it to create a good, very
synergy, right? To have some synergy between.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. And what about finding new employees? A lot of businesses now complain that it's super hard to find employees for any field, and why is an interesting topic by itself. Why does this happen after the quarantine? I don't know. I think I would have my guesses anyway. But how do you find it? Finding new employees here in Lithuania, finding new colleagues, is it hard for you, or would you say it's definitely well, relatively easy here in Lithuania?
I'd say it's not that easy. We're looking for deep learning engineers, data scientists. So the problem is that the market, the market price salary is very high for them. So it's usually very difficult for a for a startup to actually attract these talents. Somehow we managed to do it, but still it remains an issue. If you want to scale more, I think we will either have to revise our budget or start looking somewhere abroad.
Yeah. And what would you say, I'm just curious, what would you say is the average salary for someone working with the neural networks or an engineer?
It starts somewhere from 3,500 euros on paper and up to 8,000 or even more. So quite a lot.
And if you are planning to look at outside of Lithuania, which countries are you looking at?
We actually found a guy from India, and he seemed to be like, he knew all the things we needed him to know, and really competent. But the problem about employing foreigners, well, it's quite a complicated matter.
Yeah.
So
yeah, still India saving the job market since 19 something. Sure. What about others? Do you have the same problem of finding new people?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, the requirements for an interdisciplinarity kind of limit the choices. What I think so far we have found, best in slot for everyone we were looking for. The team is still small, considerably small, 15 people. So it's, we don't need to hire 100 texture specialists. So that would be probably a problem. But looking globally helps a lot. So just, picking not from around here, but also, from all of the European Union and other locations. So that helps. Yeah, it comes from its own problems, as Dovydas mentioned, with the migration, and it's great when the person has European passport, but when it doesn't, it's possible, but it comes with its time-consuming efforts to do that. But I think it's worth it, because in very obviously in different geographical locations, people come with very different pros and cons. By pros I mean specific technical abilities learned from the specific university or specific company that we would not find anyone anywhere here.
Yeah. And what about any specific challenges? Do you think there are specific challenges here in Lithuania in your field in health and biotech that, for example, you would say your colleagues or scientists in the same field or businesses in the same field in Sweden or Germany or Latvia, I don't know, don't have to go through, that are like, okay, it's a Lithuanian thing, we have just something that is not working here?
Right. So do you mean from more, hiring perspective, or more generally?
No, from your business doing in biotech field kind of perspective.
Yeah, so from the business perspective, where we're not focusing on Lithuania, so it's in protein engineering field, it's basically global from day one because there's not much choice. There are several companies in Lithuania that could use our services, and we are working with them, but not much else. And considering other points, I will just repeat myself that infrastructure. Specifically physical infrastructure for experimental stuff could always be better. So I think if you would head to, let's say, Copenhagen, you as I've seen, you would not have these problems, but of course they have a good head start in that area.
Yeah. I would guess a lot of countries or cities would like to compare themselves to Copenhagen, for example. But yeah, I definitely get your point. But so you Kubas and Toidas, what do you think? Maybe I'm just thinking it out. Maybe there are no such a thing as Lithuanian specific problem in science field. Maybe because it's science in itself is quite a global thing. So what do you think? Lithuanian specific problems in the ecosystem. Are there any?
In medicine, there is one problem. I'm not sure if it's Lithuania specific, but usually you don't get access to any data sets if you are a person somewhere from not that is from away from healthcare. I mean, you have to have connections, and usually it's very hard. We don't have open databases, and the Ministry of Health hasn't prepared any framework for getting those data sets legally without having to build a Chinese wall. So yeah, that's an issue. Finding a place where to clinically validate your solution, whatever, is also a huge problem. It's not that simple, not that easy, and generally we don't have a hub which is dedicated to fostering and developing medical devices in Lithuania. So it's up to us to figure it out how to do it.
Yeah. Okay. And Arturas had a similar question in the chat. Sorry, Arturas, I just found it quite late. We already started the discussion about the regulation of personal data of patients and legal side, but maybe we'll skip this for the moment. Jokubas, what would you say is the other challenges specific for Lithuania, is if there are any, if there are no in your field?
I think that the problem is that actually for the good product, when you use artificial intelligence, you need a good data set, yeah? And to get it, sometimes it's not as easy as we think, because we have GDPR and the same regulation is here in whole Europe. And we have sometimes if you are not, you don't have good connections, I agree with Dovydas that if you don't have good connections, sometimes it's hard to get those data sets. So I think that we should think about how to say regulations which will allow for companies which is working with artificial intelligence to get this data sets easier. So.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the struggles. Okay, and I have this quote, some wild card that I want to share with you. I was looking for something else, but I found this quote by Gintautas Gilys, the CEO of Immunodiagnostica, a company that is in a way is close to what you do, and let's say in general. So I'm just going to paraphrase what he said, since he was talking Lithuanian. I just wrote it down in English, the main idea, and I'm just wondering what are your thoughts about this. So Gintautas Gilys, the CEO of Immunodiagnostica, in one of the interviews, he said, on one hand, we invest into innovation and creation of new services. On the other hand, we don't know what to do with it. We, the Immunodiagnostics, created COVID tests with the help of EU. It is certified, but the government allows buying the test from anywhere, any country in the world. It is not interested in buying local. Lithuania is like a small laboratory. You can do a lot for free, but no one is taking what you give away for free. So what do you think about this? I think it's an interesting idea that he had. First of all, that I don't know, should Lithuania be pushing to buy more local? Should it do that? And also at the same time, is it a good place to do a lot of things for free, but it's also hard someone to find who wants it.
To some extent, perhaps yes. I think Lithuania is a very nice sandbox and laboratory to develop any piece of software, technology, whatever you name it. The problem lies especially within healthcare. Is there are a lot of medical doctors who actually want innovations, but we have this process called public tenders, which is not flexible process when you want to purchase a new piece of technology in your healthcare institution, and usually you risk doing some offenses when going with public tenders. We hear many scandals about someone purchasing some piece of software, whatever, computer, and then there's police all over the place, so things like that happen. And I think that the process is not flexible. I think I saw that, for example, in the Netherlands, where the healthcare is also public, but the hospitals are responsible for themselves to actually invest and to purchase their equipment, and they have quite a lot of freedom to decide what is good and what's not. So it becomes more competitive for suppliers to actually build the best possible solution for them. And so it makes more sense because you can then sell it quite easier.
Yeah. Okay. What about others? Would you agree with Dovydas or?
Yeah, I definitely, from previous experience in academia, there were also, public purchases that took months or years to complete. So huge problem. I think it's a widely known problem, and I'm guessing, I'm hoping someone somewhere right now is, preparing a plan to fix that.
So could you state the problem again in your words? How does sound the problem?
Yeah. So basically, the problem that in public institutions you need to buy everything officially, have specific have specific conditions for a purchase, and then hold a contest for many different companies. Whoever will win, you will need to buy from that company. It's basically maybe in theory it's not the worst way to do things, but in practice it's just inefficient, very inefficient.
Okay. Jokubas, do you have anything to add?
Actually, I agree with the colleagues because we are we're participating in public procurement, public tenders, and we see the same situation, the same problems. And actually, I think that it would be great if government will think about small companies, startups, which is developing software here in Lithuania, who can give later, well, say, big opportunities in foreign markets. And yes, the same problem I see. The public procurement procedures is quite sometimes very difficult to solve.
Yeah. Okay, so I can understand you as at the same time I can imagine business people from other fields could maybe agree with you. At the same time, people who are regulating would say that it has to be hard maybe to work as planned. And the last question I have for us, not to complain all the time, and I hope we didn't, just a few challenges we mentioned, but what's the potential that you see in the biotech and health in Lithuania? What kind of potential is untapped? What would you expect to happen in the next 5 to 10 years? Are you thinking about a rise of something or a downfall of something? So what's your idea of what is still untapped here in Lithuania?
I think that biotech has most potential, from what I saw from the amount of companies I see actually. With the medtech, it will really depend on the available funding and government policies of how bad they want startups to actually start innovating. What I saw from the past years, there was not a lot, nothing was dedicated to medical devices, medtech, and things like that. With this current government, I can see that they are more likely to go into a discussion, into a contact, and talk about our needs and goals. And so that's very encouraging. But if you want to make, Lithuania very strong in medical devices, so it's first of all government policies and the way hospitals tend to share medical data for building products, for building medical devices, things like that, and the available funding. Because generally companies in Lithuania, when they go for a pre-seed round, those tickets are like start from 100,000 euros. Some are lucky enough to get, maybe to more than up to 2 million euros. But for a medical device, that's rookie numbers. I mean, that's like nothing. So any other medical device company I see there in the market, they just keep on doing new financing rounds every 2 years or even more frequently. So yeah, that's a costly process.
Okay. Colleagues, what about the potential?
Yeah, so without a doubt, I think the next 10 years in at least, from my perspective in biotech should be of high growth, because the amount of companies that are establishing, established in the last half a year and companies that I know currently establishing is just, astonishing, and all of them have rather strong science behind them. So it's not like, let's start a company and it's not a bad approach. Let's start a company, let's think of an idea, let's try this or that. It's a great approach. But when the companies are going from research and translating it, which are the majority of companies right now in biotech in Lithuania, so I think it paints a very bright picture for the future.
Nice. Jokūbas, are you also optimistic about the future?
Actually, yes, I am very optimistic about the future of this sector. And also I see a lot of new companies established already and doing great things. So I believe that in the near future, this sector will grow. And also it depends maybe on some finances, because without finance, it's hard to do something. Maybe some funds or programs, European funds will help for those companies to grow this.
Yeah, so hopefully the Ministry of Finance is listening to us talking here and can give us some more. But I can definitely feel what you're saying. So I think that would be it. That would be the roundup of health and biotech field, as short as we can make it. From the insights about how they feel, what's the potential, what are the problems. Maybe we heard a few complaints, we heard a few things to be happy about. So thank you very much, all of you. Thank you, Jokūbas, Dovydas, Laurynas, for joining us, for sharing what they do in their field. Thank you very much, Mita and AI Boost Lithuania, for organizing the event. And as I said, it's only the first out of 5 events about AI plus something. So next week we are going to have AI creative industries on the 8th of this month. On the 14th, we are going to have AI and defense, security and space. And on 21st, we are going to have agrotech. And on 28th, we are going to have AI education. I am just sharing the dates with you in the chat shortly, very short roundup. And thank you everyone who had some questions in the chat. If you still have a minute or two before your lunch, you can write them down how do you feel about the discussion and the presentation, so we can learn about how to do it better. So once again, thank you everyone, especially the speakers, and see you in the company. See you next time.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thanks, see you.